In the unforgiving expanse of the Wild West, where the scorching sun beat down on parched earth and the wind carried the scent of sagebrush and gunsmoke, there was a small frontier town called Redstone. It was here that our story begins, with the arrival of a lone gunslinger. His name was Eli Carter, and he rode into town with his Stetson, pulled low over his eyes, his spurs jangling softly with every step his horse took. The townsfolk of Redstone were a hardy bunch, weathered by the harsh realities of frontier life, yet they couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves at the sight of the newcomer. They knew the name Eli Carter carried a lot of weight, that it was synonymous with a certain brand of trouble, a kind of danger that made men's hearts pound and women's eyes widen. But the truth of Eli's story was a tale as complex and winding as the Rio Grande, a story he'd spent years trying to outrun, for Eli wasn't just a drifter passing through. He was running from a past filled with mistakes and blood, trying to outrun the demons that haunted him. All he wanted was to disappear into the endless horizon and forget, but fate, it seemed, had other plans for Eli Carter. Because as he dismounted outside the Redstone saloon, a sharp voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "Well, now, what brings you to Redstone, Mr. Carter?" The speaker was none other than Sheriff Margaret Hayes, a woman who didn't suffer fools or outlaws gladly. There was something about her that reminded Eli of a caged panther, all controlled power and watchful eyes. Unlike many of the men in town, Margaret wasn't afraid of Eli. She knew his reputation, having read about him in newspapers while attending a police academy. And now she suspected the notorious gunslinger was hiding something behind that Stetson, something that made him seek refuge in a small, insignificant town like Redstone. As if sensing the tension thickening the air around them, Eli decided not to stick around and learn the hard way. So he just tipped his hat to the sheriff and headed for the nearest jail cell. Meanwhile, inside the saloon, the town's crooked mayor, Davis, was fuming. For years, he'd been running an outlaw ring from the very heart of Redstone, using his position as mayor to line his pockets and evade the law. But the arrival of Eli Carter threatened to disrupt his carefully constructed facade. Davis's beady eyes glinted with malice as he watched Eli walk away. "You don't belong here, Carter," he muttered under his breath. "And neither does trouble." But trouble, as it often does, found its own way. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged teeth of the mesas, a stagecoach carrying a shipment of gold was ambushed on the outskirts of town by a gang of cutthroats led by the infamous Bandit One-Eye Jack. The coach driver, mortally wounded, stumbled into the saloon, barely able to utter a warning before collapsing. It was then that Eli's skills as a marksman were called upon. He saved Lila Monroe, a spirited saloon owner, known for her quick wit and even quicker draw, from the clutches of the same gang. And in that instant, when their eyes met, over the smoking gun barrels, there was a spark, an undeniable chemistry that ignited between them. It was clear to everyone in the room that the arrival of Eli Carter in Redstone was no accident. As the days that followed, Lila and Eli found themselves drawn to each other, despite their different backgrounds and the ever-present danger that lurked in the shadows of Redstone. Nights in the saloon were filled with laughter and whispered confessions by the light of swinging lanterns. And for the first time in a long time, Eli felt a sense of belonging, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he could outrun his past and start anew with Lila by his side. But fate, as it had a habit of doing, had other plans. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown at high noon when Eli and Lila, along with the help of Sheriff Hayes and a few others, confronted the mayor and his gang of outlaws in the middle of Redstone. Bullets flew, dust swirled, and the very foundations of the town were shaken. In the end, justice was served, but not without its costs. As the sun set over Redstone that day, casting long shadows across the dusty street, Eli knew he couldn't stay. He rode out of town with Lila, leaving the saloon and the memories they had made behind. Their love born in the face of danger and written in the language of dust and bullets would forever be a part of Redstone's story, a testament to the enduring spirit of the human heart in the toughest of times.